nice to see you again on this beautiful, wonderful Sunday. And this time with a quote by Epicurus. And he says that, "Do not spoil what you have by desiring what you have not. Remember that what you now have was once among the things you only hoped for." What are your ideas on this one? And please share them with us today.
Yeah, this is a wonderful quote. And he's getting at something, or he's helping us with something that I think is really easy to forget in our modern world, in our modern culture, as it relates to our well-being, our happiness, and our contentment. And that's the fact that our dissatisfaction with our present state has a lot to do with the delta between two places. One is where we're at, and one is where we want to be. And so most of us, most of the time, are focusing 100% of our energy on where we're at. How can I get all of the things that I want to be to close the gap from this direction? And there's a lot to be said about that. And of course, we're going to do that. It goes without saying that we're going to be pursuing our goals. We want the things we want. We're going to do things to orient toward them. We're going to make various degrees of sacrifices to get them, blah, blah, blah. But what we often ignore is that in the meantime, while we're trying to move where we're at forward and forward and forward, we have the opportunity to be content and happy if we can see that this, where we want to be, is actually way more negotiable than we tend to realize. And if we can bring where we want to be right to where we're at right now, where we want to be right now is where we're at right now, then we can tap into a contentment and a well-being and a peace and a gratitude for our reality that can be so fulfilling and such a better place to exist than this perpetual state of discontentment that is born of desiring many, many things that we don't want. And this quote points to a really useful tactic that I've been trying to integrate into more and more places within my life recently, in terms of the reality that all the stuff we have, the relationships we have, the place that we live in, the thing we do for work, the car we drive, the activities that we do, a lot of these things at one point we wanted and didn't have. For example, a lot of times I find myself complaining about how hard my work is. And lately I've been trying to remind myself that, hey, Peyton, remember when you really wanted to be doing this? Remember when you were really longing to be exactly where you're at right now, difficulties and all? Remember the fact that you thought it would be XYZ at this point, and now you're in a better place and you got what you wanted, and now you're complaining about this thing that you actually asked for and sacrificed to be at a place to be in. And this reminder, and this also applies to my house. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I was walking around, I noticed something that was kind of unsightly in my basement. I didn't like it. I was resistant. I was frustrated by this little detail in reality. Frankly, I was totally overlooking the forest and fixating on this one thing that I didn't like. And then I remembered, like, do you remember how grateful you were to move into here just like 2 years ago? You remember how glad you are to have privacy. You remember how glad you are to have the peace here. You remember this, you remember that. You're overlooking all of what you have just to fixate on what you have not. And it's useful to remember that a lot of these things are not just quote unquote to be a good person. This is not like trying to be virtuous for virtuous sakes, or like trying to bear a cross and sacrifice or whatever. This is a single player game type of an experience here. If we can learn to be grateful, we are the ones that are going to have a much better experience. And if we are fixating on what we don't like about our experience and totally overlooking all of the stuff that we have that we used to want, that we still do want, if we're being honest with ourselves, then we can tap into already a much better level of contentment and peace and happiness right now by embracing where we're at right now. And so this is really, really a great practice, and one that's useful to integrate into more and more arenas of our life when we recognize how discontented we're tempted to be. What are your thoughts on this?
Evan, you already mentioned that some people think dissatisfaction, you need to be dissatisfied with your current state to be driven towards the things you desire. And so it is sometimes, it is an evolutionary thing, to be dissatisfied if you are hungry For example, so that you can get some fuel into your system to be ready for the challenges ahead. But nowadays, like you also said, this is an internal single player game where we have this vast space within us, which we can control, and we do not have the conditions to be dissatisfied in the first world where we live in. Um, so we do not need to be dissatisfied to reach the things we need in order to fulfill ourselves, or in order to reach some kind of transcendence. Whatever. We first need to satisfy our basis. So we got enough food in our belly and so on. But these things we already have, we already take for granted. So, and this is what Epicurus also points towards: do not be spoiled by desiring what you not have, so you don't forget the things you already have. We live in such an enormous um, kind of wealth. There's so much wealth around us, having been built by generations and millions of people who came before us, uh, who eventually died and left it to their descendants. And now we can enjoy this tremendous wealth which is surrounding us. We can go to the train station, board a train. Those things cost enormous amounts of money to build. So obviously, people before us have built them, so we can use them for a small fee. And we can have like water instantly. We can have like food instantly. We have so much. But in order to realize that we already can be satisfied in the moment right now, we have to uh, negotiate with ourselves to view the life we live in right here, right now, from a different lens, in a kind of different perspective. So I want you to invite everyone who's listening, invite you to take the view and take in another perspective, which is this perspective of gratitude. Wanting what you already have seems to be the same thing like being grateful for something. So there's this Stoic practice called negative visualization, where you imagine not having something in the moment for a short amount of time, but then when you go back to the moment, realizing that you have something right now, then you are immensely more grateful. Like when the next time when you give a hug to a loved one, try to think of you as that, or think of the other people as that, like 100 years later, whatever. And then go back to the moment, to the here and now, and see how beautiful it is that you have the ability to hug someone, to share love and energy, uh, to fulfill every kind of desire or need you have and you once wanted. And you surrounded yourself with things you wanted once, and now you have them. And try to remember from time to time that you once wanted these things that surround you, and now you have them. But everything around you has been built by someone, and we can also be grateful for the people who came before us, who have built all this stuff. And now it is in our responsibility to cultivate what is unique about ourselves, to give back to society, to give back to civilization, because we stand on the shoulders of giants, where we can see farther ahead and use levers which kings 100 years ago never could have levered up. So this is the thing. If you go here and right now and want what you already have, then this is another path which leads to peace. What do you say, Peyton?
Yeah, you point to something that's really true about the nature of gratitude versus dissatisfaction, and that it's intimately connected with this notion of time, of being right here, right now, versus living in the future, versus living in the past. Because what we can notice is that gratitude, in the end, is an act of recognizing what we have right here, right now, and being with it right here, right now, and being in embrace of it right here, right now. In its own way, it's a practice, just like a meditation, where it's something that we can bring into our habitual thoughts into our morning routine or our evening routine or what have you. And it has this effect of nourishing and healing the mind and recalibrating the mind and putting us in a position where we are more likely to interact with the world in a way that is flowy and connected and, once again, happy and enjoyable from a first person perspective. And it's interesting to consider how, just like when we think about our many, many causes of neuroticism versus flourishing and how they correspond with the degree to which we're living in thoughts about the future and the past versus being right here, right now. Gratitude fits right into here. And so if you think about it, if you're living in craving and greed, you're living in the future because you're not craving and being greedy for something that is right here, right now. You're craving something that you imagine will be out there in the future, that you're orienting yourself toward. And in some way, you are split within yourself because a big part of yourself doesn't want to be here. A big part of yourself wants to be in that place where you have that thing that you're visualizing, and you're completely overlooking all that you have right here. You're in effect, you're shunning what is real for you. You're shunning your reality. You're shunning the now by craving for something that is not here. You're refusing to be because you only want to become. And in the same way, regret is the same sort of, I would say, mechanism, but looking in the past. The regret is an inability to be right here, right now, because we're living in the past and wanting it to be different than how it was. And so, if we're living in the future, if we're living in the past, it does disconnect us inherently from gratitude. It is a habit that pulls us further from the present moment, further from a recognition of the gifts and the blessings that are right here, right now for us to appreciate only right here, right now. You can't be grateful tomorrow. You can't be grateful yesterday. You can only be grateful right here, right now. It is a practice for us. It's not some story for us to write. It's something for us to keep running in our hardware on some level or keep accessible to us so that we can learn to have a posture toward our experience of embracing rather than resisting and fighting in this inner conflict that rips so many of us apart so much of the time, myself included. And so this gratitude is very connected with a lot of our other practices and really has a lot to do with the degree to which we're living our life with the effort to control, with the effort to plan and anticipate everything that will happen, with this mindset that we should be manipulating reality to our wishes, that everything we want is exactly what should happen, that this thing in the future will really make us happy, which is oftentimes a failure of self-awareness when we look at, did the things in the past really make us enduringly happy? Why do we think this thing in the future is going to actually have lasting happiness? And ultimately, if we want lasting happiness, we will not find it from getting the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, this goalpost that we keep on moving and moving and moving and moving in our life. We will reach happiness, we'll reach gratitude, not from getting to what we want, because it will continually move away from us. The horizon will recede as far as we go. No matter if we get to $10 million, we'll want $100 million. If we have 100, we'll want a billion. If we want a billion, we'll want 10 billion. If we have 10 billion, we'll want to be the richest. We'll be comparing ourselves to the other people in the ranking. We'll be identifying with our number and with our net worth, and it will never be enough. The only way for it to be enough is not for us to get more. It's the only way for it to be enough is for us to decide that it is enough. It's a surrender that we can bring to our experience, to our reality. It's an embrace of actually what is, instead of living in a fantasy that rips us apart from the now, that rips us apart from our senses, that causes us to live in this state of perpetual dissatisfaction that our culture conditions into us so intensely and so regularly, so um, so persistently in so many places due to the incentives of our modern world, due to this old caveman hardware that we're rocking in our brain, where the people that were copacetic and content with just enough were 2% less likely to survive each generation or reproduce each generation. And so here we are with this hardware that's tempted to be perpetually dissatisfied with these insane stimuli and this crazy way that the modern world and the connectedness of the internet has brought status games into the forefront of our awareness at so many times. You can't win a status game. There's zero sum. The horizon is always going to be receding if we're playing these things, if we're viewing ourselves in this way, if we're measuring our life in this way. And so, really, the goal here, if we do actually want to be happy, we can never become happy. We can only be happy. The goal is to bring what we want more in harmony with what actually is for ourselves. And then when we forget about that and it gets further away, we'll recognize that, oh, I'm dissatisfied right now. It's not because I don't have that thing that I think I want in 2 years. It's actually because I am failing to recognize what is already here for me, that this now is already here. This now is already exactly as it is. It is one big gestalt of our experience. Our whole life is right here, right now. There's no other place to be. There's nothing else for there to be. It cannot be any other way. And so if we can learn to embrace that, if we can learn to love that, then we can flow through our lives and through the world in a much, much more enjoyable way. And obviously it's going to be off and on, but it's something to practice and remember every day because we're going to be a lot better off if we do. What are your thoughts on this, man?
You pointed out something great because it's the time we live in. Like always, is the here and now. And if we have our thoughts in the future, we are caught up in the mingled flows of thoughts which we do not control. But it's a game of awareness. If we manage to receive our inputs with more clarity again, if we manage to try to really base yourself, to really find the foundation within yourself, to really find the peace deep down within yourself, so that you love every breath, which a Tai Chi teacher of mine in Thailand once said, if you manage to love to breathe, you will have an easy life. You will have an easy, manageable life because you already know that it's the basics, the really basics that help you make up your life step by step. And this also refers to the practice of coming back to the here and now. And also the negative visualization is also only taking part and taking place in the here and now. You go into the future, but voluntarily, intentionally, to come back to the here and now, to have raise your negative capability of taking shit on, and to really enjoy the process along with the proceeds, because the process is where you live, like Charlie Munger once said. So we have to learn to enjoy the way towards whatever we are wanting to go, but the way is where we live. And this is what counts, because nobody guarantees us that we eventually finish or finalize or reach that goal, which we have in mind as a direction giver. We have to have the flexibility to change our strategies, to back off again, and to start new from another place, from a different position. But always with a mindset which is focused on things that you have and things you can do with what you have, and trying to make the best of everything you have, like a sailor. Be patient and be grateful, and learn to relax, enjoy the time you have for rest and regeneration, and also the times which challenge you hard, because there will be such times. But this is also enjoyable. You can drop something very valuable and then say, man, something like that can happen. Whatever can happen will happen. So now I better clean that up and do something else later, and and don't be mad about it. You just can move on, because we live our life forward, and we only understand it looking back and reflecting upon it. But we learn that the things we thought are so important. Looking backwards, you have a new perspective. Things that seemed to be really important in a time where you were stressed out and so on, they really just are another memory which you almost forgot. So learn to gain this perspective of not having something, and then opening up your eyes again and realizing that you have something, or you are a certain way, you are in a certain position, you have cultivated a certain kind of relationship, and learn to realize that this is the most important stuff. People with which you're interacting, relationships which are meaningful to you and your life, and meaningful creativity so that you can cultivate your uniqueness and bring it into the world so that other people which come after you or which live in the times you're living now can enjoy the proceeds of your process as well. So that you can enjoy your process and do what you love what you do, especially love what you do. This is what the Tai Chi teacher meant. Love what you do, love that you are breathing, love every single breath, and then your life will be easy to manage. And with that, I wish ourselves to have a wonderful week where we see the world around us with gratitude and awareness.
Reality is already here. I hope that we bring an awareness of connecting with it and loving it rather than trying to fight against it and separating ourselves from it. Thank you for these reminders. Definitely relevant for me. Something that even if I remember it sometimes, a lot of times I'm not remembering this stuff. So it's really helpful for me to reflect on it and bring it into more and more places in my life and with a little bit better clarity and awareness. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, my friend.
Thank you
I look
very
forward to
much,
the
my
next
friend.
conversation.
Same here, same here. Thank you very much for all these ideas. Have a great one.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye bye.